I honestly thought I was going to lose my entire tomato crop this year. It started small, as these things always do, just a few curled leaves on the lower branches that I barely noticed during my morning walkthrough. But within 3 days, it had transformed into a full-blown invasion. I had aphids sucking the life out of the delicate new growth, and the telltale white dusting of powdery mildew spreading like wildfire across my squash and cucumbers. I was staring at months of hard work, water, and anticipation about to disappear into the compost bin. I stood there looking at my dying plants, feeling that sinking feeling in my gut that every gardener knows. I knew I had to act fast, or the season was over. But here was the problem I faced. I didn't want to blast my organic garden with harsh, synthetic chemicals that would kill the pollinators I work so hard to attract. I didn't want to spray something that would make me afraid to let my kids eat a cherry tomato right off the vine. On the other hand, the fancy organic sprays at the garden center were going to cost me $50 just to get enough coverage for my raised beds. And I wasn't even sure they would work on an infestation this severe. I needed something cheap, I needed it to be completely food safe, and most importantly, I needed it to work immediately. That is when I decided to test a rumor I've seen floating around the internet for years. They say a simple white powder sitting in the back of everyone's pantry, something you probably have right now, is actually a potent biological weapon against pests and disease. But is it actually safe for plants, or is it just another gardening myth that burns your leaves and ruins your soil pH? I decided to take the risk so you don't have to. I went into my kitchen, grabbed a box of baking soda, and decided to run a controlled experiment. I mixed up a specific batch, sprayed it on my dying plants, and tracked the results closely. What happened next actually surprised me, and it changed the way I look at pest control forever. Before we get to the specific recipe, you need to understand exactly why this works, because getting this wrong is exactly how most people accidentally kill their garden. The secret ingredient here is sodium bicarbonate, plain old baking soda. Most of us think of it for baking cookies or keeping the refrigerator smelling fresh, but on a microscopic level, it functions as a powerful disruptor. When a fungus like powdery mildew or black spot tries to grow on your leaves, it requires a very specific, neutral pH level to survive and reproduce. Baking soda is alkaline, meaning it has a high pH. By coating the leaf surface with this solution, you are essentially changing the chemical environment of the plant's surface. You are creating a hostile zone where the fungus simply cannot live or spread. It's like trying to breathe on Mars. The conditions just aren't compatible with life for the disease. For soft-bodied insects like aphids, spider mites, and whiteflies, the mechanism is even more brutal and effective. The salts in the baking soda, combined with the other ingredients we're going to add, work to dry out their exoskeletons and disrupt their respiratory systems. It creates a physical barrier that suffocates them and causes them to dehydrate rapidly. But here is the catch, and this is the part the viral 60-second videos usually skip to their own detriment. Baking soda by itself is just a powder. If you mix it with just water, it will bead up and roll right off the waxy surface of a kale or pepper leaf. It will drip onto the soil and do absolutely nothing for the pests on the plant. Or worse, if it doesn't roll off, it will dry into concentrated salty clumps that will burn your plant tissue the moment the sun hits it. To turn this kitchen staple into a real weapon, you need a carrier and a surfactant. Let's go to the kitchen lab and mix this properly. You are going to need a 1-gallon sprayer or a simple hand spray bottle, depending on the size of your garden. If you are using a standard 1-quart spray bottle, start with 1 tablespoon of vegetable oil or horticultural oil. The oil is crucial because it helps the mixture stick to the pests and coat them, which is essential for the suffocation process we talked about. Next, add 2 drops, and I mean just 2 drops, of basic dish soap or Castile soap. The soap acts as an emulsifier, mixing the oil and water together so you don't just spray straight water while the oil floats at the top. It breaks the surface tension and ensures an even coat. Finally, we add the star of the show, 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Not a tablespoon, not a cup, just a teaspoon. This is where everyone goes wrong. They think that if a little bit is good, a lot must be better. But in the garden, too much sodium will desiccate your plant tissue faster than the bugs will eat it. It leads to phytotoxicity, which looks like burnt brown edges on your leaves. Stick to the ratio: 1 teaspoon of soda, 1 tablespoon of oil, and a few drops of soap. Fill the rest of the bottle with warm water to help everything dissolve and shake it vigorously. You want a milky, consistent suspension where no powder is settling at the bottom. Now, let's head back out to the garden for the application, because technique matters just as much as the recipe. When you apply this, you can't just miss the tops of the leaves and walk away. Aphids, mites, and mildew spores are survivors. They hide on the undersides of the leaves, in the deep crooks of the branches, and curled up inside the new growth where it's hard to reach. You have to get in there and drench the plant. You want it dripping. You need to physically contact the pests with the solution for it to work. I recommend doing this in the early evening, right as the sun is going down. If you spray this mixture in the heat of the midday sun, the oil can magnify the sunlight like a magnifying glass and scorch your leaves, leaving you with more damage than you started with. Plus, spraying in the evening gives the solution all night to work on the pests before the beneficial pollinators wake up in the morning. So, did it work? I tracked the progress over a full week, and the results were undeniable. Let's look at the difference between day 1 and day 7. On the first day, the aphid population was dense, clustering on the stems and sucking the sap. The leaves were sticky with honeydew and starting to curl. After the first application, I checked back 24 hours later. You could see immediate results. The aphids had turned brown and were falling off the plant when I tapped the stem. The powdery mildew patches had stopped spreading and looked chalky and dead, rather than fuzzy and white. But one application is rarely enough for a heavy infestation because of the egg cycles of these pests. I reapplied the spray on day 3 and again on day 5 to catch any hatchlings I missed the first time. By day 7, the difference was night and day. The new growth was coming in clean, vibrant green, and completely pest-free. The existing damage from the mildew wouldn't heal. Those spots remained scarred, which is normal, but the disease had stopped spreading to the healthy tissue. The plant had been given the breathing room it needed to recover and start producing fruit again. I saved the harvest. The total cost of this treatment was pennies. I calculated it out, and 1 gallon of this spray costs about 12 cents to make, compared to the $20 you'd spend at the store for a product that is essentially the same ingredients in a fancy bottle. There are a few limitations you need to know about, however. This mixture is not a systemic poison. It doesn't get absorbed into the plant and kill bugs that bite it later. It is a contact killer. You have to hit the bug to kill the bug. This means if it rains, or if you water your plants from overhead, you are washing the protection away, and you will need to reapply. It also means you need to be consistent. You can't spray once and expect a miracle. You have to monitor your garden and stay on top of it. Also, some plants are more sensitive than others. Tomatoes and peppers generally tolerate this well, but if you are spraying something with delicate leaves like lettuce or ferns, I highly recommend testing it on a single leaf first and waiting 24 hours to see if there is any reaction before you spray the whole crop. The verdict is clear. This isn't just an old wives' tale. It is a legitimate scientific tool for your organic arsenal, provided you respect the ratios and the application method. It saved my harvest when I thought it was a lost cause, and it did it without putting dangerous toxins into my soil. It empowers you to take control of your food security with items you already have in your kitchen. It requires a bit more patience and consistency than the nuclear option of chemical sprays, but the payoff of eating clean chemical-free food from your own backyard is worth every second of extra effort. If you found this test helpful and want to see me put other garden myths to the test, do me a huge favor. Hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and tells YouTube that this is the kind of content you want to see. Make sure you are subscribed and have that notification bell turned on so you don't miss our next experiment where we are going to tackle homemade weed killers to see if vinegar really works or if it just kills your soil. And I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever burned your plants with a home remedy? Tell me your horror stories down below, or tell me a trick that actually worked for you. I read every comment, and I'll try to help you fix any issues you're having. Thanks for watching, and happy gardening.